Hello, folks. This story was sent to me by a subscriber and is intended for educational purposes only. Thank you for watching. 800 micrograms LSD. The day the plants tried to teach me physics, I'd always thought my backyard was just a boring patch of grass and some scraggly plants. But on this particular afternoon, armed with 800 micrograms of LSD, everything changed. Everything changed. What began as a simple solo trip quickly turned into the most surreal gardening lesson I never asked for. About an hour after swallowing the tabs, the world around me began to warp. The fence started to breathe. The sky twisted like a kaleidoscope. And the plants... as if they'd just been plugged into the Matrix. I was crouched near my tomato bush when it happened. The leaves shimmered, and then slowly, very slowly, started to lift off the stems. I rubbed my eyes. Nope. Still there. The tomato bush was levitating. Not by much. Maybe a few inches, but enough to freak me out. Then the strangest thing. The leaves began to rearrange themselves in perfect geometric shapes. Triangles, circles, even fractals. A kaleidoscope of green geometry, shimmering in the sunlight. "Welcome, human," whispered the breeze. Or maybe it was the bush. Felt like the plants were collectively speaking to me, their voices carried in the rustling leaves and shifting shadows. I blinked. Did I just get schooled by my tomato plant? The biggest leaf, shaped like a perfect pentagon now, seemed to project a tiny glowing orb. I reached out, and as I touched it, I was instantly bombarded with visual data. Math equations, swirling vortexes, and energetic field. It was like I had just been hit with the universe's cheat codes for physics. Energy flows here. The leaf explained in a voice that sounded like a mixture of wind chimes and static. Gravity, light, force. All danced to the rhythm of nature's pulse. The plant taught me about quantum entanglement by splitting itself into tiny leaves that danced in sync across the yard. I watched in awe as vines intertwined, their movements perfectly timed like dancers in a cosmic ballet. Suddenly, the garden transformed into a lecture hall. But instead of professors, there were talking plants, sunflowers with doctoral caps, daisies wielding chalk, and a particularly grumpy cactus correcting my math. One sunflower leaned over and said, "If you think photosynthesis is just biology, think again. It's the most efficient energy conversion system in the cosmos." Meanwhile, the cactus grumbled, "Try living on water and sunlight alone. We'll talk about efficiency." I was scribbling invisible notes in the air, trying to keep up with this botanical TED Talk. A cluster of moss morphed into a glowing blackboard, showing the Schrödinger equation, while a cluster of mushrooms giggled at my bewildered face. At one point, the garden turned into a giant particle accelerator, and I was a tiny electron zipping through beams of light and probability waves, feeling the thrill of quantum uncertainty firsthand. As the trip deepened, the boundaries between plant and human blurred. I could feel chlorophyll pulsing through my veins, and the urge to photosynthesize was surprisingly strong. I even caught myself contemplating sunlight as a snack. The plants weren't just teaching me science. They were showing me that life itself is this weird, beautiful, interconnected system, and that maybe humans have been too focused on controlling nature instead of learning from. Hours later, as the sun set and colors faded back to normal, the garden slowly returned to being just a garden. The plants settled back into their boring old selves, but the knowledge, along with a newfound respect for chlorophyll, lingered. I stood up, dusted off my pants, and whispered, "Thank you, professors." The breeze answered with a gentle rustle, like a nod from my leafy tutors. That day, I learned that sometimes the universe's most profound lessons come from the quietest corners. And that maybe, just maybe, my backyard was the best science classroom I'd ever find.